Hello everyone, thank you very much for joining us today in this new video, in which we are beginning a new series of talks where we deal with the impasses, with stalemates that might come in our way in the sense of with the consequence of interfering in our well-being. As you know from previous videos, from lots of moments we've been talking together, well-being is not just simply a passive state. It's not just an utterance. I am experiencing well-being, as if well-being was something that depended exclusively on outside factors or random factors, or just as a consequence of not being under specific stress. Well-being is much more of a biological, clinical construct where we actively contribute to our physical, mental, social health. And now in this series we're going to talk a little bit about some things, some attitudes or some ideas we have about ourselves which may contribute to undermine our well-being. Today we are going to talk a bit about linearity, a conception when we conceive ourselves within a linear idea, like A takes to B, which takes to C, and takes to D. We have a joke in Brazil which is about a Portuguese. In Brazil, the Portuguese in our jokes receive the same treatment as the Polish receive in the American jokes and the Irish receive in the English jokes. So when you hear someone saying, you know what happened when the Portuguese did such and such a thing, you know it's a harassing joke that's coming up. So we have a joke that the Portuguese was writing letters. It was in the days when you had no emails, you had no electronic devices, you had to communicate through paper letters. It was not an email, it was a mail. And he had to give his friend the news that this friend's mother had died. And it was very tough. He was in a doubt how to do it. And someone said, just do the following, like go introducing the person to the fact slowly. Like you say, you write one letter and say, I have a beautiful kitten. And the next letter you write, the kitten climbed up on the roof. And then the next one, the kitten slipped. And then finally the kitten fell. And the last letter you say, the kitten didn't resist. So do something like that to deliver a hard news. So the Portuguese went back and he wrote the first letter he wrote. Your mother climbed on the roof. So that's the idea of linearity. A takes to B, that takes to C, and takes to D. And we tend to think that we exist, we live in a straight line, which is not true. Our thoughts don't go about us in a straight line. Those of us who practice mindfulness know we are not linear. It's just not what happens. We go more chaotically. We kind of go more elaborately, like in a geometric progression, not in an arithmetic progression. So, and that is a characteristic. That is something we have from our episodic memory. Our episodic memory is built in a chaotic way. So much so, we might make one or another mistake when we recall something we went through. I say, such and such, I broke my arm playing football at this city, this town. No, it wasn't. It was that town. It's true, it was that town. It wasn't this one. But somehow, in the consolidation of my memory, these things happen. Why? Because the system is very complex. Instead of having one sphere that leads to another one, that leads to another one, it's more like one takes to three, this one takes to another two, This one stops and this one is linear to the next one. That's how we have graphs. The mathematical name for this behavior is a graphic behavior, graph. And it's a mathematical figure, and it's very used nowadays dealing with cellular phones, the connections you have. They come back. They have two sensors, so they're very complex graphs. So that's how we build our understanding and our logic about ourselves. We know ourselves in this way. So every time we become very linear, we start getting into trouble. Let's take an example here. You all know King Midas. There were 3 of them, and one of them was mythical. One of them had a lot of mythical stories about him. The most famous one is when he salvaged someone from the court of Dionysus. Dionysus, the Greek divinity for the eternal, the everlasting teenager. And he lost one of his acolytes. And Midas found him and delivered him, sent him back to Dionysus. In gratitude, Dionysus said he would grant him a wish, whatever he wanted. So Midas said, I would like everything I touched turn into gold. That's a way of getting this. It's a very clever way of getting rich. Although he was a king, wasn't he? So he was already rich. He was already a rich man. But then what he realized was that he wasn't being able to get fed, because whatever his lips touched turned into gold, food or water. So he cursed this blessing he received, and he prayed back to Dionysus and asked what he thought was a wish turned out to be a curse. And then he goes and Dionysus teaches him how to get rid of the curse. He had to bathe in a certain river, and he touched, and just in touching the river, all the sand banks and all the rocks in the river turned into gold. But he was able to feed again. So what is the point here? Oh, he was greedy. No, he wanted money. But that is something that is quite universal. When we stop to think of it, it's what really puts the world going round. At least the financial world, at least the material world, at least the world that provides us with clothing and with food and with electricity, and allows us to do these kinds of things we are doing here. We're having chats, we're having talks via electronic means. All this is done with money. It's all money. I mean, money isn't everything, but it is not something to be despised. And Midas didn't. But what he was, the mistake he committed with the fulfilling of his wish, was he thought of it in a linear way. Whatever I touch will turn into gold. Consequently, I'll gather gold. Consequently, I'll become rich. But that's not how we live. That's not how we exist. It's more chaotic. So I earn money, supposing he did not become unable to feed. Let's suppose that Dionysus just gave the gift on his fingers so he could eat with cutlery. Then what would he do with that money? When would he stop producing gold? What's the limit for it? So it's an impasse. It's a stalemate. How much, how far shall I go? Seems easy, doesn't it? Not that simple. So the story here we have with Midas is that we can create obstacles to our own well-being without necessarily having done anything morally reproachable or wrong according to law. We might put impinge obstacles. Being 100% honest and 100% linear, 100% crystalline. The same thing happens when we think of ourselves. When you think of our motivations, when you think of our inclinations, we think about our personality traits, we usually tend to think in a linear way. So I have seen I think they are good activities and they can bring out certain effects, but we have to be careful because they are linear. Say, on your left, here you list all your strengths, and on the right you list the 5 strengths against 5 weaknesses. Despite the fact that you're seeing this, whatever it is, in your disposition, in your attitudes, in your behavior, in your feelings, whatever it is you consider a strength or a fortress, or you consider a flaw, that's today. Within a few days' time, you might have a different opinion of it. And second, you valued things, you judged them. You consider these things wrong and these things right. And then when you practice mindfulness, that is going to definitely get in your way. When we approach ourselves, when we look at ourselves in a linear way, we might lose the most important of all aspects of our being, which is our richness and our complexity. That we are more complex and we are larger than our understanding of ourselves, I think that's undeniable. I think that's beside the point, not necessary to go over. But when we think of what we can know of ourselves, the 20th century specifically, with the arousal, with the appearance of psychology, psychological sciences, the development of psychopathology in medicine, psychiatry as a specialty in medicine, we gathered a large amount of experience and conceptual luggage to deal with how we see ourselves. So one of the net effects of everything, you go psychoanalysis, cognitive therapy, mindfulness-based cognitive therapy, other kinds of therapy, Gestalt, Winnicott-Winnicottian approach, all these, Melanie Klein, Carl Jung, all of them bear one great aspect in common. All of them realize that the human being knows more than he realizes he knows. The human being knows more than he tells, but not to the therapist, not to other people, himself. We know more than we tell ourselves. And then, on the other point, we manifest things we don't realize. So, man says more, knows more than he says, and mankind says more than he knows. This lack of congruity many times is taken as a disappointment when we think of our mind as a crystalline box where everything is clear. That is a quest for linearity. And we work more in a chaotic way, trying to get out of that. But now it's chaotic with a sense. It's chaotic with a direction. I guess all of you are understanding what I'm talking about from your own personal experience. That's not a specific flaw of yours or mine. It's something that happens with us. So we have to learn to exist in a net-like conception of the world. By the way, the more intelligent people are considered those who can establish larger nets knowledge systems, of thinking systems, of philosophical settlements and scientific findings. The larger your net, the more you are considered to be smart or sharp. But there is a price to that. You are never linear. You are never linear. That in the traditions, especially in the Buddhist traditions, where you have the Four Noble Truths, an excellent exercise for us. Those of you who are not acquainted with these texts, they're very simple, they're very quick. You can go on Google, give a search engine, and check what the Four Noble Truths are, what the Eightfold Path is. And you will check that the Eightfold Path is a way, there are suggestions, ways to sort of bypass, to sort of surpass the confusions that this complex scenario can cause, because it's complex, because it's large, and we are extremely demanded from an emotional and social point of view. Things are expected of us, from us. People get disappointed with us. People get enchanted with us. All sorts of stuff. And we have to know how to deal with these things in order not to be drained, stressed and drained into situations where we demand of ourselves something that is beyond us. So this is basically our idea. So when we practice, one of the things we will come into contact is our chaotic, non-linear, complex way of dealing with our emotions, with our memories, and with the people we love. That is acceptance. That is non-judging. It's about this kind of dimension. That doesn't mean we are just going to overlook any ethical issues. We are just going to disregard any moral establishment. It just means that we're not going to judge ourselves as misplaced because we have a somewhat seemingly in want of organization, which is our mind. When we gather our scattered mind, we're gathering complex stuff, just not leaves on the floor, but we are gathering memoirs, we are gathering values, we are gathering aspects of our autobiography. It's quite an endeavor. So, those of us who practice, it is extremely important to understand that we will have coherence, but not via a linearity. It's quite a different exercise. When you go after in the direction of a sense in things, in the direction of coherence, bypassing the fiction that we should be linear, and when we are not linear, we are in fault. That's the great danger we have, the great slip we might take, the bad step, which can take us to very unhappy and ungratifying experiences. If you think this video has helped you, please don't forget to subscribe, to give us a like, to share, and to leave us your comments, which definitely help us improve our videos. Thank you very much. See you soon.